originally our administrative training was delivered manually usually by myself, and usually as a result of some sort of data integrity issue. What would happen is I would deliver this training to administrators, and what this meant was that there was a little bit of an inconsistency, and what we discovered is that there was a little bit of a gap between what a lot of our administrators sign up for and what they actually understand the requirements from them. This outlines that in really, really good detail, I think. It also allows the administrators the opportunity to answer some questions, so it allows them to gauge their own knowledge. And so it was created by Stacey and MTA as a result for that need. Now, if you've got new administrators starting, I would thoroughly recommend that they get a hold of this training. Get in touch with Stacey and get a hold of this training for if you've got any new administrators. It's a really good and simple way to outline their expectations of MTA. It's a really good way for them to understand that when they hit the little dot about the T's and C's, what's included in that, because a lot of the times I was finding when I was delivering this administration training for people who had committed an integrity incident, there was a lack of knowledge and understanding that, hey, I didn't realise that I'd signed up for this. So there's a lot of value to be had in new administrators particularly getting on, and particularly if you've been an administrator for a little while and just want a top up, I thoroughly recommend this training for you. It will give you a top up. It will set the expectations for you, and particularly for those that have completed the previous employee administration training. You'll see that this has an area where it does check for your understanding, and I think that's one area where this is far superior to the manual one that we delivered before, which was very prescriptive. It was a legal document that I basically read out to administrators as a result of our data integrity process. So that's the reason why the training's been created. As I said, I think it's a really valuable tool. It's another tool that you have in your tool belt to ensure that the administrators that we have on the RIW system are able to perform their roles at a high level. Okay. Leslie, is there anything else that you want to add?
Just that this will be available for everyone shortly to do as well.
Will we be reporting it in the monthly newsletter when it becomes available, so people can check to see for when that comes out? I'm sure there'll be a notification in there.
There'll be a notification.
So keep your eyes
once it's live.
Yeah, perfect. So once it's live, keep your eyes peeled for that training, and if you've got people within your organisation that you feel require it, or if you yourself feel that it would be a nice refresher to have, please feel free to sign up. Alrighty. Now the rest of today we're going to have a discussion around the data privacy and integrity of the RIW system. And one of the reasons why we decided to, again, run the COP around this issue, I just got a question around the cost of the training. Look, you're probably asking the wrong person. Leslie, do we know what the cost of the training is?
We don't have an official cost of the training.
We'll find out costs and terms and conditions, so to speak, closer to the date. All right, so back to our data privacy and integrity. The reason we're running this session is because 2026, we've seen a spate of data privacy and integrity issues. And what we've identified across the RIW network is there's a bit of a lack of understanding from people about what's involved, what it looks like, there's so many processes behind it that people are unaware of, and it's only once you're in the middle of it that I get questions like, well, why do I have to do this? What happens to the employee? What happens to the administrator? What happens to the company? All of these sort of questions. So hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a little bit more insight around what's all the work that goes into it. So as I said, we don't know. It'll be there was just a question come up on the chat around when will this be available. Just in the next just keep your eyes out on the next, and there'll be a notification going out to everybody about when it's available. So from a data integrity point of view, data privacy and integrity is how MTA commits to protect the privacy of all rail industry worker participants. And it's the way in which MTA ensures that any personal information is managed securely, and all users must comply with all the following terms. So as part of signing up for RIW, everyone signs a PAA, or a permission access agreement. Part of that agreement covers the privacy policy of the whole RIW program. We've also got an RIW privacy protocol. And there's also, from a data privacy and integrity point of view, another layer are our system access rules for employers, site admins, network operators, AHPs, RTOs, and the like. So these are all the various layers of data privacy and integrity within the RIW system. Now, as part of that, what are some of the things that MTA actions? A couple of things that we look at. So for those registered training organisations that use QR codes, this is one of the most effective tools for verifying whether a document is in fact what it states it is. The increasing use of these codes by our RTOs has ensured that verifications can happen much quicker, because obviously the only thing you need to do to validate a document is to check the QR code, and it will bring up exactly who it belongs to, who it was done by. So if the information coming up from the QR code doesn't match what's on the document, obviously the service desk or whoever's checking that document understands that there's an issue that needs to be addressed. The other one, and the standard verification process, is what we call a back to source confirmation. And this is where, if we're at all uncertain regarding any documentation that's been submitted, it's a direct verification with the RTO that's issued the document. Obviously, this is probably the most, not probably, it's the most effective integrity control available, because we get notification from the RTO that, yes, we issued this, yes, it was issued to Manny or Leslie or whoever it might have been issued. We use back to source confirmation when a verification cannot be completed because the QR code is missing, or the QR code is not giving us an outcome that we expect. There's some more sort of checks that we do. Obviously, once we do a back to source verification, what are the ongoing checks? And this is a question I get regularly from a lot of our network operators. Now, part of that QA process is that there is a QR process that happens in the background where documents from a source are randomly selected, and we look to see, we do QA on those individual documents. If we find anything, there's so as an example, if as part of our QA process we discover that there's more documents from the same source that have that issue, we refer to MTA for further investigation, and our data integrity process kicks into place. Now, the extreme end of that data integrity process is the appointment of an independent auditor, and they conduct a deep dive into organisations and make recommendations around their processes and procedures to ensure that any data integrity issues that are picked up are addressed if there's a systemic issue or a systematic issue within an organisation. Obviously, the most extreme is referral to police, and as part of our data integrity process, I mean, we have that in place when there's a systematic attempt to circumvent our data, our privacy protocols. Now, as I said, we haven't had many of those in the time that I've been here, which is probably a good thing. It's not the sort of thing I'd want to be doing regularly, but we have had a spate of data integrity issues in 2026. It's probably, unfortunately, been a record year for that. At this stage, we were sitting at 7 yesterday, and as of this morning, we're sitting at 8 major data integrity issues identified so far. So, my view, particularly on these, is that that's of the ones that we have discovered. So how do our RIW members ensure that, and not just our members, our service desk, what are some of the validations that take? So as an example, one of the simple ones is before approving or rejecting a competency, reviewing the applicable RIW business rules and competency requirements. Many of our competencies include accepted document examples, and comparing those examples against the submitted evidence is one of the ways in which we perform our checks, and pretty much the standard protocol for where that service desk and myself and all of our QA team use to check. The other one, from that point of view, and the way that what we're picking up, unfortunately, in the data validations we've had before, is that shared logins continue to present a major compliance and security risk across RIW. Despite all of the information going out, multiple users trying to access the RIW system using a single account is still unfortunately occurring. This reduces accountability. It makes audit trails really difficult. It increases the likelihood of mistakes. It increases the likelihood of anything unauthorized or inappropriate activity occurring within the platform. And I cannot discourage it enough. It's as part of the PAA, part of what not just every person in RIW signs up, is that their login and account security is their responsibility and is not to be shared. So we'll cover a little bit this a little bit later on. The other thing that I might add, and one of the really positive outcomes of a lot of our recent discussions around data integrity, is that people are bringing their concerns to us, which is wonderful. So when there are network operators out there that have a document that comes across their radar that looks suspicious, they're referring it back to Service Desk immediately. And Service Desk are our experts when it comes to this. What I mean by that is any concerns that you have around any unauthorized access, any inaccurate information, just report it to Service Desk for investigation. The reason I say that is Service Desk also have a series of tools, and I'll go through some of the tools that they have available to them. Some of them are technical tools where they can scan a document and it gives you an indication of whether anything has been altered. We've also got ways in which we can identify trails of individuals who may have committed those acts. So from an MTA and a service desk perspective, we've got a series of tools that we can use that will add to our normal data validation checks. Our normal checks, we're comparing it to an approved sample document, as our normal checks about going back to QA. Because let's be honest, with all the technology available to people these days, none of those, even those visual comparisons, are fail-safe. So we certainly have some technological tools to ensure that there's an extra layer of capability with Service Desk to identify and to check that documents that are presented for verification. There are some things that, particularly for a lot of our administrators out there, just be careful when you're submitting competencies. Things like completion dates, if something continues, and award dates, and, the difference between the two. Sometimes the issue dates, so when the training is completed and when it's issued aren't the same day, it creates some problems. So we want to make sure that a correct expiry is always applied. We want to ensure that we want to prevent confusion and any delays while Service Desk is running around trying to ensure that the information is correct. So some of the things that Service Desk look for, and myself and some of the other QA people at MTA look for, inconsistent fonts, inconsistent formatting, inconsistent spacing, misaligned logos. In some instances, we've had certificates missing, unique identifiers. So a lot of these RTOs these days, as part of their own successful, verification processes to assist us, put unique identifiers on documents, and a lot of the times in some of these data integrities, when people are trying to update details on it, mismatched training dates is obviously a very common indicator. Mismatched qualification codes. There's also some further from activities that Service Desk takes. These include things like quality spot checks. So they'll randomly, as I said to you before, go and spot check some documents that have been submitted for verification. So we'll do a back to source verification. We'll jump on, check the QA code. We'll run our technical systems over document to ensure that it is what it's supposed to be, and we keep a record of those. MTA, and part of my job has been for a long time to do quality assurance desk for things that have been either verified by service desk or alternatively do them from scratch. We also do some quality assurance tests for our RTOs as well. So as I said before, intentional fraud incidents are reported to the appropriate state or can be reported to the appropriate state or territory police and ONSA as well. So again, just to reiterate, any concerns around any unauthorised access, if you've got any concerns around information being inaccurate on a document and you're unsure, just get in touch with Service Desk. It's their job. It's what they're paid to do, is to go back and check the integrity of that document and make sure that if you're going to put it into RIW, that it is what it purports to be. All right. Let's have a look at some examples. Can anyone spot the difference? All right. So this is obviously and the difference here is basically you can see the one on the there's a few fonts. Yep, absolutely. And also you can see that they've decided to add a whole paragraph that wasn't originally there. So again, look, if you looked at it on its own, you wouldn't pick it. Service Desk, the consultants at Service Desk have got a fantastic eye for this sort of stuff, and generally, they don't sort of miss this. So it's really important. As I said, this could be something that would be very easily missed. I know I presented it to some of the people internally at MTA, which was an interesting little process. I said, "Oh, can you pick which one is what it's supposed to be?" And it was interesting that not everybody got it right, because look, at the end of the day, unless you're looking at it with really closely, unless you're looking at it in an appropriate size, it'd be very easy to just go, "Oh, yeah, this is great. Well, I'll just submit that. I'll just verify that and stick it in a profile," and obviously create some. We don't want to be creating any issues around that. Let's have a look at another one. All righty, here's an interesting one. Can anyone see what the problem is with this one? Right, and this is one of our more clever, and you can see that the difference in font between license number and date of birth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely right on the money. So again, you have to look, and the thing is with the verification of our documents, it's if you're not 100% in that moment, it'd be very easy to just go, "Oh, yeah, this looks reasonably good. Yep, that looks fine. Verified, let's move on." And again, we've now put information into RIW that's not supposed to be there and could potentially puts us all at risk, because there could be someone on the network who's not supposed to be on the network. And that's kind of the whole point of our verification process, is to make sure that the people that are supposed to be on the network are A, qualified to be there, and B, have all those qualifications and those documentations are as they should be. Alrighty. So some of the long-term consequences the consequences of our fraudulent activity. Suspension of those competencies is an obvious one. Removal of RIW access is a fairly common one that happens whilst we are investigating. Employer escalations in some instances, unfortunately, particularly this year, we have had some employer involvement in some of these data integrity issues. Our audit findings have, particularly for a couple of the organisations that have been involved in some of these data integrity issues, it's quite a drawn-out process. An auditor going into your organisation, going through all your processes and documentations and making sure that everything is as it should be and that there's no gaps there that allows the integrity of the information in RIW to be tinkered with. It's quite a long, drawn-out process, and whilst the outcome at the end is fantastic, because the organisation that's a part of that audit gets a tick box that their processes, their risk in terms of their risk management is what it should be, and it's by no means quite a pleasant process, unfortunately. Obviously, there's the possibility of regulatory or legal outcomes, as in the worst case scenario where there's something that's company-wide or structured. We haven't had one of those for quite a while, so I've been here for 3 years and haven't had one instance at this stage of anything like that. But we did have one earlier this year, earlier this year, in the middle of this year, where there were there may perhaps be some legal outcomes because there appeared to be a company-wide intention to add information into RIW that wasn't correct. So unfortunately, that's still out there. All right. So from an employer point of view, look, obviously, as part of the documents that we spoke about right at the beginning, if you remember, there is an obligation for employers to ensure that any workers, all their workers meet mandatory competency and safety requirements before performing any rail work. And again, many of these instances of data integrity issues that we have is because of time, is because there are workers that need to be on site at a specific time. And it's very, very easy to go, oh, look, I'm just going to alter this. I'm just going to alter a date. I'm just going to, on a document, and then I'll get them to redo the training later because I absolutely need them on site today. I mean, that's unfortunately in a lot of the administrative training that I've been delivering has been a common theme. There are common themes with workers doing altering documents, just to get on site because they need to get on site, and the pressures to get on site and sometimes the complications involved in some of the necessary documentation to get on site create these. So my advice to you is, if you're unsure, if you want something done, please pick up the phone, call service desk. The wait times to get through to service desk are really quite minimal at the moment. We're talking less than 30 seconds. Get some advice. Let them know if you see something untoward and you're not sure. Send an email through or come through to myself or anyone at MTA and say, hey, I've seen something that doesn't look right, and we'll ensure that we'll take the necessary steps to make anyone who's not doing the right thing accountable, but also to ensure that we can identify someone who's unsure. And again, the other side of the equation is, like, I've spent, particularly earlier this year, some time with some lovely administrators, some of our smaller organisations who are simply unaware. They tick the PAA and go, yep, I'm fully aware of everything that's going on. I'm just going to get gung-ho into it. And then they do things that, because of a lack of awareness. And that's what the employee administration training that Leslie spoke to us about before is about. It's to give them the G-up that they need to make sure that moving forward from that training, there won't be any further complications. All right. And that brings us, and again, unbeknownst, this is very unusual for me, it brings us to the end of our training session today. I'm happy to remain on the line for as long as people need me. Alternatively, if you have any questions, please feel free to post in the chat, and I'll happily answer away any that I can. Any that I can't answer, I'll come back to you on the chat, and I'll find out any further information. So if there's any other questions, I'll bring it to a close today. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.